Imagine a boy who couldn't read well, stuttered, had asthma, and faced constant abuse, bullying, and racism. Now imagine that same boy transforming into one of the toughest men on earth, running 100-plus-mile races, surviving the Navy SEAL Hell Week 3 times, and setting world records, all by mastering his mind. This is the story of David Goggins, a man who turned pain into power, fear into fuel, and weakness into unstoppable mental strength. In this video, you'll discover how to push past excuses, control your mind, and unlock your hidden potential, while improving your English, vocabulary, and listening skills along the way. Are you ready to learn the lessons that can change your life? To stop waiting, start moving, and realize, you are never finished. Chapter 1 begins with darkness. David Goggins was born on February 17, 1975, in Buffalo, New York, and his childhood was far from normal. It was filled with fear and pain. His father, Trunnies Goggins, owned a roller skating rink, and from the outside the family looked successful, but behind closed doors David and his mother lived in constant abuse. His father was violent and controlling, especially toward his mother, and treated David like a worker instead of a child, forcing him to stay at the rink late into the night and then wake up early for school. He had no time to rest, play, or feel safe, and later he would say, "I didn't have a childhood, I had a job and trauma." Even worse, he was not allowed to talk about what was happening. He had to smile at school and pretend everything was fine while inside he felt scared, angry, and alone. On top of this, David struggled in school. He had a learning disability, asthma, and a stutter, and many people called him stupid and laughed at him, but this painful beginning would later become the fuel that pushed him to build an extraordinary life. Teachers did not believe in him, and over time, David stopped believing in himself too. Eventually, he and his mother escaped from his abusive father and moved to a small town in Indiana, hoping for a fresh start, but life became even harder. David was the only black student in his school, and every day he faced bullying, racist slurs, and rejection that made him feel invisible and unwanted. He later said that no matter where he went, he felt like he did not belong. Slowly, he began to hide from the world, pretending to be sick so he could avoid school, becoming afraid of tests, people, and even life itself. His grades dropped, he started lying and cheating, and he wore a mask to survive, even though deep inside he knew this was not the person he wanted to be. Years later, standing in front of a mirror, shirt off, overweight, scared, and filled with self-hate, David barely recognized himself. He weighed almost 300 pounds and worked in pest control, spraying cockroaches, waking up miserable and going to bed feeling worthless. Then one day, everything changed when he watched a documentary about the U.S. Navy SEALs and saw men pushing their bodies and minds through extreme pain, cold, fear, and exhaustion, and he knew instantly, that is the man I want to become. The challenge seemed impossible. He had to lose more than 100 pounds in just 3 months to even qualify, but instead of quitting, he declared war on his old life, cleaned up his diet, trained multiple times a day, and earned his chance to enter SEAL training with one goal, to become the toughest of the tough. What he faced next was BUD/S training, a brutal test of pain, discipline, and mental strength, where candidates are pushed to their limits through freezing water, endless runs, sleep deprivation, and constant pressure, especially during the infamous Hell Week, where men survive on only a few hours of sleep over 5 days while being broken down physically and mentally, screamed at non-stop, forced into the ocean, carrying boats over their heads, bleeding, shaking, exhausted, and discovering who they truly are when quitting feels like the only option. You carry heavy logs, crawl through sand, roll in mud, and run until your feet are torn apart, not just to test your body but to break your mind, and this is where David Goggins finally broke. He was badly injured and pulled out of training, told to go home, a moment where most people would quit forever and say, "At least I tried," but David refused to accept that ending and made a promise to himself that he would fail as many times as it took, but he would not leave until he became a Navy SEAL. After healing, he returned to Bud/S with a new class, only to be struck with double pneumonia, his lungs filling with fluid as doctors warned him that continuing could kill him, and once again he was removed from training, now having failed twice under the most public and painful conditions imaginable. Embarrassed, hurt, and exhausted, he still would not quit because he believed something rare and powerful, that you control your mind, and your mind does not control you. On his third attempt, when almost anyone else would have walked away, he entered training with one rule: he would suffer, he would bleed, but he would never quit, and this time Hell Week was even worse as his body began to shut down, stress fractures cracked his legs, his shins were damaged, every step felt like his bones were breaking, and every breath burned like knives in his chest. He wrapped his legs with duct tape, urinated blood, could barely walk straight, yet he refused to ring the bell that symbolized quitting, saying he would rather die there than live another day as the weak version of himself. After endless pain, sickness, broken bones, and extreme mental pressure, David Goggins finally graduated from Bud/S and became a Navy SEAL, transforming from a scared, overweight, bullied child into one of the most elite warriors on the planet. But this was not the end of his journey. Becoming a SEAL was only the beginning, because he wanted to discover how much pain the human mind and body could truly endure, what exists on the other side of suffering, and how far a person can go when they refuse to quit. Teaching one powerful lesson through his life: most people give up when they are only using about 40% of their true potential. But if you keep moving forward through pain instead of running from it, you will eventually meet a version of yourself that is far stronger than anything you ever imagined. Pain becomes the path, discipline becomes the weapon, and suffering becomes the teacher, because on the other side of hell is growth, purpose, and greatness. Chapter 2: The Ultrarunner Who Beat Pain begins after David Goggins became a Navy SEAL, a moment when most people would feel satisfied and stop pushing, believing they had already proven enough. He had survived Hell Week, conquered his past, and earned a place among the toughest warriors in the world, yet deep inside he believed something different, that limits are lies and there is always more inside you. Goggins lived by one rule: you do not stop when you are tired, you stop only when you are finished, and he knew he was not finished yet. Instead of choosing comfort, he entered a new battlefield that had nothing to do with guns or war zones, but everything to do with mental endurance, the brutal world of ultramarathon running, where athletes run 100 miles or more through deserts, mountains, darkness, and extreme exhaustion. Not long after becoming a SEAL, Goggins lost several close military friends in a helicopter crash during a mission in Afghanistan, a loss that deeply shook him and left him searching for a way to honor their sacrifice and support the families they left behind. He decided to raise money for fallen soldiers' families and discovered one of the most punishing races on Earth, the Badwater 135, a 135-mile run across Death Valley, one of the hottest places in the world. But to even qualify, he first had to complete a 100-mile race in under 24 hours, and he had only 3 days to prepare. With no running background, no proper shoes, no training plan, and no support crew, David showed up to a small race in San Diego carrying nothing but raw determination and a mind trained not to quit. He began running, and at first the miles felt manageable, 10 miles, then 20, but soon pain arrived, his legs cramped, and his body started to break down. By mile 50, everything was failing, his kidneys began shutting down, his feet were covered in blisters and bleeding, bones in his feet were fractured, and his posture collapsed from exhaustion. At his lowest point, his body completely lost control, yet even with every reason to quit, he refused. He sat down briefly, taped his destroyed feet, drank a small protein shake, stood back up, and continued running mile after mile, fighting not just physical pain but the voice in his mind begging him to stop. After hours of pure suffering, he finished all 100 miles in under 24 hours, qualifying for Badwater and proving once again that the human mind can push the body far beyond what most people believe is possible. The race left his body severely damaged, his muscles were torn, his toenails fell off, and he could barely walk for days, but it also revealed something deeper. Pain had become his teacher, suffering had become his strength, and quitting was no longer an option in his world. Doctors warned him that continuing this way could cause permanent damage, but Goggins responded with a truth that would define his life. He said he found something inside that pain, a version of himself he had never met before. That was the moment he understood a powerful lesson: pain unlocks a door, and on the other side of pain is power. He realized that if you are willing to suffer longer than most people are willing to suffer, you can achieve things most people will never reach. After qualifying, David Goggins entered the legendary Badwater 135, often called the toughest foot race in the world, a 135-mile run through Death Valley where temperatures reach nearly 120 degrees Fahrenheit, the ground burns your feet, there is no shade, no comfort, and no mercy. Goggins didn't just survive this race, he finished near the top again and again, running it multiple times and pushing even further into extreme endurance events, including 100-mile and 200-mile ultramarathons, non-stop 48-hour races, and even setting a world record by completing more than 4,000 pull-ups in 24 hours. He never did these things for trophies or applause, he did them to prove that the human mind, when disciplined and controlled, is the most powerful weapon on earth. One of his most famous mental tools is what he calls the cookie jar, where he stores memories of past suffering and victories, surviving childhood abuse, enduring racism, completing SEAL training, running with broken feet, and whenever he feels like quitting, he mentally reaches into that jar and reminds himself, "I've been through worse, so I can handle this too." Goggins became extraordinary not because of genetics or talent, but because of mindset, and his story teaches a simple but uncomfortable truth: you don't need perfect conditions, motivation, or permission, you need discipline, honest self-talk, and the refusal to quit. You must become your own hero by choosing hard things on purpose, doing difficult work every day not because it's fun, but because it builds self-respect, and as Goggins says, suffering earns you the right to be proud of who you are. This leads into Chapter 3, Can't Hurt Me, where his life experiences became a message for the world. After transforming himself into a Navy SEAL, elite ultrarunner, and symbol of mental toughness, people kept asking how one person could endure so much pain without breaking, and instead of giving quick answers, David wrote a book that became a global movement, Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds. The book is not just a biography, it is a blueprint for building an unbreakable mind, and it begins with a hard truth he calls the first truth bomb: Stop lying to yourself. Goggins explains that the most important conversation you will ever have is the one inside your own head, yet most people wake up every day repeating excuses like "I'm tired," "I'm not good enough," "it's too hard," or "I'll start tomorrow," and those quiet lies slowly build a prison that keeps people far below their true potential. David calls this way of living the path of weakness, and he challenges people to step off it by telling the truth to themselves. He says you must stop lying. If you are overweight, admit it. If you are lazy, face it. If you are wasting your potential, look in the mirror and own it, because you cannot change what you refuse to confront, and this kind of honesty is not meant to shame you, but to free you. His second lesson is to callous the mind, explaining that just as your hands grow tougher from lifting heavy weights, your mind grows stronger every time you choose discomfort, waking up early, training when you are tired, studying when it feels boring, saying no to unhealthy habits, or speaking up even when fear tells you to stay quiet, because each difficult choice builds mental toughness until life's hardest moments can no longer break you. His third lesson is the accountability mirror, a practice he started as a young man by placing honest, uncomfortable notes on his bathroom mirror that forced him to face his flaws every single day, and each night he would ask himself one powerful question: did I give my best today, or did I waste it? A habit that removes excuses, stops blame, and puts full responsibility for change back where it belongs, on you. Another core idea is the 40% rule, where Goggins explains that when your mind tells you that you are finished, you are usually only at about 40% of your true capacity, meaning there is far more strength left inside you than you think, whether it is running farther, studying longer, or pushing through one more hard moment. A truth he proved by completing ultramarathons on broken feet, and one you can prove to yourself by refusing to quit when things get uncomfortable. He also teaches that suffering is not something to fear, but the path to freedom, because most people stay stuck by chasing comfort and avoiding pain, while real growth comes from choosing discipline over ease, effort over excuses, and the harder road that actually leads somewhere meaningful. Finally, one of his most honest lessons is that no one is coming to save you. David grew up in abuse, fear, and neglect, and he learned the hard truth that waiting for motivation, help, or perfect timing only keeps you trapped, while taking responsibility for your own life, even when it is unfair, is the moment real change begins. He was abused, bullied, ignored, and underestimated at every stage of his life. He struggled with learning disabilities, people laughed at him, and no one believed in his future, not teachers, not classmates, not even society. Then one day, he faced a hard and uncomfortable truth that changed everything: no one was coming to save him. If his life was going to change, he would have to be the one to change it. That realization became the turning point, and it carries a message that can change your life too. Stop waiting, stop hoping someone else will fix things, and take responsibility for becoming your own hero. For David Goggins, "Can't hurt me" doesn't just mean pain can't touch you, it means no one can control you when you stop fearing opinions, stop chasing comfort, and stop running from discomfort. The book is not really about suffering, it is about power, the power that comes when you face your fears, confront your past, and realize that rejection, failure, and criticism lose their grip once you have already fought your inner demons and survived. Goggins didn't write "Can't Hurt Me" for fame or money. He wrote it to wake people up and remind them that they are not defined by their past or their pain, that they have more inside them, and that the key to their freedom has been in their own hands all along. The book became a global bestseller, sparking a movement of people around the world choosing hard challenges, not to impress others, but to prove to themselves that they were capable of far more than they ever believed. Chapter 4, Never Finished, carries that message even further and represents the legacy of a man who refuses to stop growing. After the success of Can't Hurt Me, many assumed David Goggins had reached the peak. He had survived a brutal childhood, become a Navy SEAL, completed Hell Week multiple times, endured broken bones, run 100-mile races, and inspired millions, but Goggins does not believe in the idea of enough. He believes you are never finished, and that belief became the title of his second book, Never Finished: Unshackle Your Mind and Win the War Within. Even after gaining global recognition, he continued pushing his limits, running more ultramarathons and training harder than ever, until new pain appeared, this time from within. Doctors eventually discovered he had a hole in his heart, a serious condition he had lived with since birth, one that should have disqualified him from extreme physical activity and could have killed him without warning. Yet he had already accomplished everything people said was impossible, unknowingly fighting death itself, and when doctors told him he needed heart surgery, he did not panic or fall apart. He faced it the same way he faced every challenge in his life, with calm resolve, discipline, and the unshakable belief that adversity was just another test to overcome. He laughed, because once again life had delivered pain, and this time he was ready for it. He had trained his mind for moments like this, and instead of fear he felt calm, saying that pain no longer scared him because he understood how to suffer and keep moving forward. David Goggins underwent heart surgery, recovered, and then returned to training with the same intensity, using the experience as another lesson rather than an excuse. In his second book, Never Finished, he explains a powerful idea. Most people stop growing because they believe they have already done enough, improved enough, or become better than most, but that mindset is the real trap. Goggins teaches that greatness has no finish line because life is not a race you complete, it is a lifestyle you build, and every day you should wake up asking yourself what you can do today that scares you, challenges you, or forces you to grow. In Never Finished, Goggins doesn't just tell stories, he gives practical tools, starting with what he calls the savage mindset. He explains that most people live with civilized minds that chase comfort, avoid pain, and seek balance, while a savage mindset is a warrior's mindset that trains not to win medals but to dominate inner weakness and silence fear. It means doing hard things even when you are tired, uncomfortable, or completely alone, and training your mind to believe you can handle whatever comes next. Another key idea is the mental lab, a place inside your mind where you study your own behavior with honesty, asking why you quit, why you avoided difficult conversations, or why you keep repeating the same excuses, instead of escaping into distractions like screens, food, or blame. Goggins also teaches the idea of staying dangerous, not in a violent sense, but in being mentally and emotionally prepared for stress, pressure, failure, and discomfort, reminding you that peace is most powerful when it is chosen by someone who is capable of handling chaos. Above all, he reminds us that the path is always hard and always uncomfortable, but it is worth walking because on the other side of pain is pride, on the other side of fear is freedom, and on the other side of weakness is the strongest version of yourself. Today, David Goggins is more than just a person, he has become a movement and living proof that the human mind has far fewer limits than we believe, that the body is capable of far more than it seems, that the past does not define the future, and that excuses are always a choice. He teaches that pain is not the enemy but the doorway to growth and greatness, and while he never set out to be famous, his mission has always been simple: to help people realize they do not need to be perfect, only honest, disciplined, and willing to keep pushing forward. If you are reading this, it is not just to learn about David Goggins, it is because something inside you wants more from life, wants to break old limits, and wants to become stronger than you were yesterday, remembering this one final truth above all else: you are never finished. Here is the message David Goggins would leave you with: wake up earlier than feels comfortable, choose one hard thing to do every single day, run straight toward what scares you, and stop avoiding discomfort because growth lives there. Be brutally honest with yourself, use your pain as fuel instead of an excuse, and when your mind tells you to stop, answer back that you are only getting started. You are not finished, you are just beginning. If you have made it to the end of this story, you have already proven something important about yourself. You are hungry for change, you want more from life, and you want to become someone your younger self would be proud of. You now understand that strength is not something you are born with, luck is not a requirement, and perfection is not the goal. The only thing you need is the courage to take the first step and decide that you will not live the same way anymore. David Goggins did not come from privilege or comfort, he came from pain, fear, and nothing, and he turned it into power, proving that transformation is possible for anyone. No matter where you are right now, how broken you feel, or how far behind you think you are, change is still within reach if you are willing to work for it. So get up, stop waiting, start moving, and remember this truth: you are not finished, you are just getting started, and yes, you can do it, because the strongest version of you has not shown up yet. So, what's your excuse? David Goggins didn't wait for anyone to save him, he chose to fight, to suffer, and to grow. You don't need to be born strong, perfect, or lucky. You just need to start, take that first step, and refuse to quit. Remember his truth: pain is the path, discipline is the weapon, and suffering is the teacher. On the other side of fear and struggle is the strongest version of yourself waiting to be unlocked. If you want to keep learning powerful stories like this, improve your English, and train your mind along the way, subscribe to Silver Narratives and join us on this journey. And always remember, you are not finished. You're just getting started.